Hey, I'm Peter. I lead our review team here at GreenLite. I'm a registered architect, and I came to GreenLite to kind of help change the permitting industry. Previously, I've hired a lot of expediters and had a lot of problems getting permits, and looking forward to kind of help changing that game. And we've been doing that over the last few years. Permitting's not fun. It's pretty much always kicked to the curb and disrespected, and no one wants to do it. So why would myself as a registered architect want to go do permitting? It seemed very much beneath what my title was, accreditations were, what I've done in my past. I would hire people to do my permits. I would never do them myself. That was the norm in the industry. So we brought a bunch of architects and engineers who are passionate about basically changing the permitting industry. I think the defining moment for me was the idea that you should take a shot and to do something impactful, to actually go change something that has been a thorn in your side in your career. And I think that idea for me about servicing an industry that I have been a part of positively and a larger impact was very appeasing once I sort of understood that part of this opportunity. I am doing something that's good. I believe what we do is a good service for the world, for America, because we're helping people get permitting. And there's a lot of people that are involved in that. So often days I'll talk to, 20 different people to just get one thing done on the permit. And it's kind of fascinating to sort of have that care and empathy for all those people because you've been part of it before. And I often say what we do is what I always wanted when I was an architect. So a lot of that service, empathy, understanding, professionalism, just kind of putting that into what I said had been kicked to the curb, expediting. I think for me, a lot of it was this, more than anything, were we ready to do it, or was it possible? I often tell our clients, the reason why you're listening to us today or talking to us is because it's universally accepted that permitting sucks or it's difficult. So I think that was what I felt was broken, is that I knew that coming in, which is why I was so skeptical. And I was around a lot of people who just, we'll figure it out, we'll do it. And I think it took a lot for me to kind of get to that tipping point as well, because I actually had direct experience with it not being possible. And I was listening to people who didn't have to do that and being like, yeah, we'll figure it out. So that was, hard in the beginning for me to basically be around a team of, wanting to do something, but me not believing it. And then once I started to believe it, really started to take off. Yeah, across my career, I've hired a lot of different expeditors. Good ones were far and few between. But a lot of times what drove me, wild with it is that you would pay someone to do something for you to say, get the permit faster or give you updates. And the urgency or the understanding of why that was important was never really there. It was more like they felt it was a privilege to have them on the project versus them as a service professional. And I think that was always very fresh for me, is that it wasn't this idea of service. It was more hey, yeah, I'll do it for you, and then you should be lucky that I'm going to do it for you. So that always grinded my gears. And then the other big part was the lack of understanding. I will joke oftentimes with a client on a call where I was I've hired expeditors before, but I've also had expeditors send me the wrong project comments to my email. And I'm like, don't you look at what you send me? Don't you open what you receive, or do you just push it along? And oftentimes the customer will be like, yeah, I've had that happen to me. And that is just kind of the epitome of this idea of no service, no empathy, no understanding of why I hired you. And that kind of gets to the root of it for a lot of people pretty quickly of yeah, that's pretty much an expeditor experience that they would just not really care about. Even if it was your project, you're just a number. The industry has really come to this point to now where there has been such an acceptance that permitting is going to take a long time. And since it's going to take a long time, everyone is so focused on, we got to start that sooner. And this idea of an out to permit date, or we must submit by this date, what I learned from being on the other side of the industry was that it caused so much strife within these firms to make poor decisions or do things fast or not thorough. And it became so apparent that the goal was to submit. But if you submit and you get rejected 2-3 times, or you miss your timeline, can't build, that's a subset of the actual goal. The goal is to be approved. So yeah, I tell our team here, the goal is not to submit, the goal is to get approved. And that drives home this idea that we have high quality, high thoroughness, and we want to do it right one time. We're not just trying to do an arbitrary date because of, it's going to submit, because submitting doesn't get you approved. And you can't build something if you're not approved. And GreenLite has sort of just boiled that down to be like, no, the real goal is to get approved, so we should remind ourselves of that, not be so focused on the secondary goal of that kind of has ballooned in the industry. The things that seem trivial or non-important are the things that are important. Having your sheet index correct, making sure the drawings are sealed and signed, and making sure it's packaged and it's presented well, and you talk to the person in the right tone. Those are what matters oftentimes. You could have the best design or the best detail. The person who's rejecting you might not understand that. What they do understand is common courtesy, and common courtesy is to make their life easier and do the right thing. So when someone gets a large number of comments back, I'm of this belief, this idea, that large number creates a lot of pre-built stress, procrastination, delaying. Oh my goodness, it's 30 comments. What am I going to do? This was probably really difficult to handle. I don't got time to digest 30 comments. And it just gets kind of held until the moment where you get the courage to do it. So yeah, sometimes a lot of teams are really good at kind of handling 20 to 30 comments, but a lot of times just that number alone is enough to sort of put a delay or procrastination into the process. At GreenLite, what we do is that we quickly identify those 20 to 30 comments and let you know there's no cost concerns or schedule concerns. And that, I believe, reduces that stress level very quickly for the teams. Like, no, we can get past this. We can do this, and here's how we're going to do it. So giving the people the answer, letting them know that it's going to be okay, really helps a lot of our customers to understand that, no, competent people are once again involved in this process. We're not just telling you you have 30 comments. We're telling you have 30 comments. 28 of them are very easily doable, and 2 of them we're going to follow up and we're going to push back on the jurisdiction to make sure that we can resolve this quickly. So identifying that into a more digestible format is really foundational to our business because, like I said before, expediters I would want. I wouldn't want just, hey, you got comments. Hey, you just got this back. I would want help. I would want this assistance, this level of service to say, here's how we're going to do it. And that's exactly what GreenLite does. I think expediting has been looked down historically in the industry because it was something that was previously done by someone and then outsourced to someone else. Expediting hasn't always been a profession. And, it's become necessary due to some of the difficulties of permitting or the bureaucratic nature of that. Very rarely did it become a need because it was a desired service. This goes a lot to this idea of who has the power. And in design school or engineering or architecture, a lot of times it's very subjective, or it's about how much knowledge you have. And becoming right is almost like a rite of passage within these engineering and design firms, having your way or showing your competency. But when you go to submit for permit, being right is not what the permit says. The permit says approved. So the person who can grant that approval, that's where the power lies. And oftentimes, being right is not as much of a concern if, the person who has the power that can give you the approval to do what they kind of want. We kind of do that oftentimes for our customers to understand that, listen, the reviewer could be wrong. However, we don't think it's worth it to be right. It's worth it to sort of acquiesce to that power. Recently, I had some feedback from one of our sales people talking to a customer, and they asked a pretty interesting question, which was, how long does it typically take you to resubmit back to the building department? And they answered something like 4 to 6 weeks typically. And then the salesperson followed up and said, well, how long did it take when GreenLite was helping you? And he's like, I didn't even notice it had already happened. And It was interesting because that goes back to some of these other ideas of like, we took the comments in, we made it really easy for the architect to do, that the client didn't even notice that we were doing it because it was so smooth or easy. So that was always an interesting part for me, is this idea that, oh, you can do such good service that goes unnoticed. So that was a pretty cool moment. There was times where our project was kind of getting kicked around, or what we would call stuck. So GreenLite created this sort of like unstick service that we do. And one time we had a customer who just wasn't getting an answer from the building department, or had a problem with the GC, and they were just so frustrated, like, well, why can't I build? And the solution was easy. The solution was, logging into the portal and literally hitting the submit button. But they weren't happy that we hit the submit button. They were happy that we actually explained why they should have been frustrated, understanding why they were frustrated, right? It wasn't just doing the job or getting it done. It was so much more about building that understanding and empathy of, we get it, we understand it. So that customer, went on to sign multiple contracts with us, and it's just about that idea of competency within the profession of getting a permit. It's not, getting the permit is a good part of it. Making sure why you're getting it and who you're getting it for is as important. At GreenLite, if we have a scaling problem, at GreenLite, we believe in this idea that we want to empower our people with tools and technology. We don't want to just add more bodies to the team, because that's going to break at a certain point, right? As humans, we're only capable of so much. Our brains can only handle so much. Like myself as an architect, I can only remember so much building code. But with the tools and technology that GreenLite's building, it's making me the best architect or the best code compliance reviewer. That technology and tools integration with our in-house expertise is the strength of GreenLite, is that we don't want to just replace people, we want to enhance people. We want to enhance the ability to be experts. So our technology is doing that today, and it's only getting better. My coming into GreenLite early and helping us build for success, one of the foundational things I believed in is that when you talk to somebody, you talk to the person, not to the problem. And too often times in a growing company, everyone is so concerned with the problem or the solution that needs to be had, and they forget that we're a company of people. On ops, we really prioritize this idea of the pod or the team, that you together are going to solve the problem. You together are the solution. Nothing on ops is ever a one-man show. And that ability for us as a company can kind of bring that into our culture, that the people you work with matter more than the problem you're solving, has been a really kind of core tenet that has really kind of shaped our culture a lot, of having a lot of really great people here with a lot of really great solutions. I think at GreenLite, one of the defining factors of what makes us special is this idea that we have in-house experts. We have people who were previous general contractors, previous architects, previous engineers, right? They've been in CAD, they've picked up permits, they've paid fees, they've swung hammers, right? That is our defining factor as a company, is that we have those people in-house with that expertise. Why I'm looking forward to kind of continuing my time here at GreenLite is because each day we are doing things that are truly impactful and making real results for our customers. I talk about I might miss design, I might miss something in construction, but the reality is I'm still going to have a permit problem. And it's pretty cool for me to kind of give my expertise and my skill set into a problem that could impact me one day. So yeah, really this idea of being at GreenLite long term is so much about the impact we're making on an industry that needs a solution like ours. We just left the meeting recently, and it was kind of funny that the problem with our difficulty in engaging with product is that we are all problem solvers. To work in permitting, it is a field of problems, and your ability to solve problems is what matters. Problem solving is an absolute requirement to be part of the ops team.